you all are fairly stupid. And everything that's being said is ridiculous. And it's just like a comedy show.
You think you can change your sex? How can you ever call anybody stupid?
Another day, another trans activist crashing out on live TV. We're going to talk about the latest insane television appearance by a radical trans activist, plus a WTF moment from Trump, Coachella drama, and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our politics, and our media, all from an independent perspective. Up first, like I mentioned, today's a day that ends in Y. So trans activists are popping off in crazy manner and unfortunately doing the LGBT community a profound disservice. Once again, on the Piers Morgan show, one of my guilty pleasures on YouTube, where the guests yell at each other and go Jerry Springer style in debates quite frequently. And the topic was, once again, the trans athlete debate, given a bunch of liberal propaganda or commentary on this from the likes of, I think it was John Oliver, who just did a big special about it. So they had this debate yet again, and it went about as well as you could expect after Piers Morgan stated his position on this, which is rooted in facts and very fair and very balanced, and the trans activist immediately crashed out. Take a listen.
I am fully supportive of trans people's rights to lead the same life as the rest of us. However, and it's a big however, when it erodes, when the battle for trans rights to fairness, equality in particular, but also safety, when that erodes clearly women's rights to fairness and equality and safety, I have a big problem with that. What do you say to that?
I think it's difficult. I think that there's a lot of emphasis being put on trans people in sports specifically. I made it very clear, like, I am not here to spit facts or spew anything in terms of like statistics or anything like that. I have my lived experience as a trans person. I feel that there's so much attention being put on to this specific subject because what you guys really want underlying is the eradication of trans people and them to not be involved in any system.
No, you see there, look, but look, Stassi,
that is the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my life.
When I saw this, I rolled my eyes so hard I gave myself a headache. Everything about this is just dreadful, diabolical even. One, the trans activist here says, I'm not really here to spit facts or statistics and just give my lived experience, so then you shouldn't be here. Like, then you have nothing to offer. If you have no facts, no arguments, just my lived experience, yeah, your lived experience isn't worth much, babe. Okay, when you're talking about a public policy debate rooted in science and ethics. So, not a great start from that. Then, to jump after Piers, and he lays this out, how he respects trans people's rights and freedoms and wants them to be safe. I agree with him a lot on these issues. We both have a moderate view, but doesn't think it's fair for biologically male people to compete in women's sports. Like, basically everybody, this person goes, you just want to eradicate all trans people. Bruh, seriously? Now, to be clear, there are some people, the Michael Knowleses of the world, who I've debated, who openly do say they want to eradicate transgenderism from public life. To be clear, they don't mean eradicate the people. They don't mean kill people or anything like that, but they do mean cease the existence of people being trans and have everyone live as their birth sex. And sometimes they support pretty authoritarian ways of ensuring that. I personally don't support that. I think that's really drastic overreach. I think adults should be free to live their lives however will make them happiest. And if that means living as if they're the other sex, I believe fully in their freedom and their right to do that. So it's not as if there's nobody who says things like eradicate transgenderism. That is not most people who just want biological males out of women's sports. And it is totally dishonest and disingenuous to frame it this way and just try to dodge the argument by invoking the most extreme possible people on the other side and then tarring all your political opponents on what's a pretty common sense position of keep female sports for females only. Say, oh, well, you just must want to eradicate all of us. You sound deranged, love. You sound deranged. And then, next, this trans activist decided to immediately gaslight us. Take a listen to this second clip.
What was transphobic? What have I ever said that could be remotely construed as transphobic or trans-hating or wanting to get rid of trans people? Ever. I challenge you right now. Tell me.
I haven't really directed that at you just from sitting here. I more so am just here to say that I feel that the issue that's being pressed is because it's a.
You just directed it at him. What are you talking? You directed it at him.
I think that the issue that is being put on trans athletes is a way to eradicate trans people.
Bro, so this activist said, you guys, in the first clip, said you guys, referring to the panel and people like them, just want to eradicate trans people. And that's why you talk about trans athletes. Then, when Piers calls BS on this and is like, I don't want to eradicate trans people, this is a BS deflection and a smear, the trans activist goes, well, I didn't say that specifically. I didn't put that on you. You literally did moments before on camera. Like, you know this was taped, right? You know we can hit the rewind button and go back. Like, I don't know what this person thought they were doing, but to actually act as if you can get away with that when you're on camera is bizarre, and yes, it's gaslighting. Now, the next clip is actually the most outrageous part of this entire segment, and I'm going to show it to you guys after this. AI is the future, and content creation is no exception. If you're a creator or you've ever wanted to get in on the game, well, it's never been easier, thanks to today's sponsor, Opus Clip. Finding the right moments from your long-form videos to clip for short-form content is really hard, and editing them down into the perfect reels that can go viral is so much work. Or at least it used to be before I discovered Opus Clip. Clip Anything is their newest AI-powered feature, providing creators with unmatched control to find and clip the best moments in our videos. For example, I put one of my recent videos in, and it pulled out a perfect moment for me to share as a short-form video, edited and analyzed for peak viral impact. Look, if you want to support tariffs, if you want to say the stock market doesn't matter, I disagree with you on both fronts, but we can have that debate if you're actually holding those positions. But that's not what people like Benny Johnson are doing. They're just flip-flopping. Clip Anything's time-saving AI capabilities are astounding. From B-roll generation to reframing to filler word removal to one-click audio enhancement. Get started on your content journey now. Just visit www.opus.pro/clipanything. It's really never been easier. So this trans activist who just lied and gaslit and bizarrely strawmanned and smeared everyone on the panel, then had the audacity to say this. Take a listen.
I'm not outraged. I just think that you all are fairly stupid. And everything that's being said is ridiculous. And it's just like a comedy show.
You think you can change your sex? How can you ever call anybody stupid? How can you ever call anybody stupid?
Yeah, she should sit that one out.
Hey, I'm just sitting back watching the shit show happen. I'm here for it.
Oh my gosh. The audacity. The absolute sheer and utter audacity of coming on this television program, immediately opening up that you have no facts or arguments to offer, just your lived experience, then smearing and gaslighting everyone else on the other side of an 80-20 issue that you've chosen as some bizarre hill to die on, and then to say, I'm just here to laugh at you all because you're so stupid. Babe, look in a mirror, okay? Because this whole segment, this whole episode was wild in a lot of ways, and not everybody came off looking amazing, to be sure, but you definitely came off looking the worst. And you definitely gave the entire trans community a bad name, like these activists do all the time, because lots of everyday trans people out there in America have jobs and families and lives and are, other than this unique experience they have, pretty normal people. But the voices and faces of this community have been hijacked by unhinged activists like this, who are just diabolical at this point with their levels of delulu and their toxicity. And somehow, as well, not just everyday trans people have been lumped in with this, the LGB has been lumped in with this insanity. And that I simply will not stand for. Okay, that has nothing to do with me. Please, hard pass, no thank you. But this episode of Piers Morgan was a good example that it's not just the far left who can be delulu and unhinged at times, the far right can be too as well. Because Andrew Wilson, who's a far right debater and YouTube guy, had this to say about women being injured by male competitors in women's sports. Take a listen.
If you look at the voting patterns of women in both the UK and the United States, they're usually the deciding vote when it comes to degeneracy. That includes when it includes on the trans issue. So here you are. It's the very thing that you push for empowerment of women that is now causing your very problem. You have to now convince women. Men are already there. Men have already said, nope, we don't want this. We never wanted it. It's garbage.
To be women.
Yeah, apart from the women who are claiming to be men, which now it's almost equalized. Remember that part? Right? This phenomenon, though, is categorically rejected by men and reinforced by women. And TERFs like you did everything that you could possibly do in order to push that. You did everything you could do to push that. And now you get to reap the whirlwind. So I don't care if women in their sports teams are getting their teeth kicked in. I don't care. Reap what you sow. As you sow, so shall you reap. And then you get exactly what you deserve.
You seem like a lovely person.
I'm sorry that you have to deal with the consequences of your own actions.
WTF? Did this Christian conservative man just say that he doesn't care if young women get their teeth knocked out by male competitors in women's sports? Seriously? This is a traditional man's perspective? Because that's wild to me. And look, the argument he's trying to make, and I understand the argument, I do not agree with it whatsoever, but the argument that he's trying to make, to be clear, if it was lost on you in that exchange at all, or kind of lost in the back and forth, is that women support liberalism and feminism in a disproportionate, a statistical amount. Therefore, this position, now them being harmed and women's sports being compromised, is a result of that support. So basically FAFO, right? Like reap what you sow. That is insane. It's based on a sort of true premise, right? Or a true premise that I think he overstates it, but women do lean to the left politically, but you still have like 40 to 45% of women who vote Republican. So almost half don't even go along with that. And regardless, the idea that an entire group of people should be punished because some of them vote the way you dislike, and therefore you should no longer care about young women being injured or hurt by biological males is deranged. A lot of these young women are too young to vote, or for all you know, voted Republican. Like, it's not normal or healthy to lose all empathy and sympathy for people just because they disagree with you politically. And you can make the argument that like modern feminism pushed this total eradication of gender and gender norms that led to the trans movement and this insanity, without saying that therefore all women collectively deserve whatever happens to them and you have no sympathy for them. That's wild. That's bizarre. And it's certainly not like conservative or traditional conservative men are supposed to, from what I know, and I am not one, right, are supposed to want to protect women, are supposed to be protectors and providers, not laughing at young women being injured because they disagree with the politics of a slim majority of women. That's a bizarre form of collectivism, in fact. And honestly, just as unhinged as anything as that trans activist had to say moments ago. All in all, it was an utterly wild segment that reminded me why the debate on these issues is so toxic and so broken and so polarized. I desperately think we need better, calmer, saner voices on all sides of these hot button culture war issues. But hey, this certainly made for must-watch TV. What did you think of this segment? Let me know in the comments, and please do consider hitting that like button and subscribing if you haven't yet. Up next, we gotta talk about something Trump just said that's raising some eyebrows, to say the very least. Okay, because there's been this whole controversy about an immigrant who was sent into El Salvador, even though he was deported. He was allowed to be deported, but there was a court order saying he wasn't supposed to go to El Salvador, but he was sent there anyway. There's been this whole brouhaha over, can the Trump administration get him back and what have you, and that's a whole debate. But Trump just said something that's an escalation beyond that. He seriously is floating the idea of sending American citizens who commit crimes to foreign jails in El Salvador. Take a listen to this clip.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in.
Yeah, that's insane and probably illegal and unconstitutional, because American citizens can be imprisoned if they commit serious crimes, and absolutely should be, but they can't be sent to foreign countries, and they can't be sent to basically torture dungeons. Like these jails, I'll get into some details in a moment, but these jails in El Salvador that we're talking about are horrific. And the 8th Amendment of the Constitution very clearly says you can't subject people to cruel and unusual punishment. So what Trump's floating here is on its face illegal and unconstitutional, and so it's pretty disturbing to see him just casually musing about it. And it's another example of how he's taking an issue that should be a winning issue for him, deporting illegal immigrants who commit crimes or are a threat to society, and taking it too far, giving ammunition to his critics and undercutting what he was elected to do. I found myself, of all people, agreeing with the left-wing co-founder of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, when he wrote, "Why doesn't he just deport undocumented criminals? That would be very popular. Why does he have to try something illegal or unconstitutional? Why would you even consider sending US citizens to a foreign prison?" It's like he's trying to find ways to chip away at the Constitution. I pointed this out on Twitter, that I agreed with this, and that to me, it's obviously crazy to send American citizens to foreign prisons. Like, we have prisons here for a reason that they can go to. And the conditions, let me just remind you of this prison that we're talking about in El Salvador, are horrific. Something that I don't care what people commit, what crime they commit. We don't literally torture people for committing crimes, so you can't do that, not under our 8th Amendment to our Constitution. Reading here from the Daily Mail about this El Salvador prison we're all talking about, it is, quote, a notorious prison where inmates are subjected to extremely harsh treatment and live in overcrowded cells without basic essentials. Inmates are herded into cold, sparse cells with 80 men crammed into each, with no sheets, pillows, or even mattresses, just hard steel bed frames. They have nothing to occupy them, such as TV or books, and aren't even allowed to speak to each other. There are only 2 toilets, and lights are on around the clock. Every pavilion also has its own windowless cell where unruly prisoners are sent. The same meal is served every day and has to be eaten by hand as utensils aren't allowed. Phone calls and visitors, even family and lawyers, are banned. Inmates spend 23.5 hours locked in their overcrowded cells with just 30 minutes to stretch, chained in the middle of the hallway. Yeah, so the idea that we would ever send an American citizen to a foreign prison like that, no matter what heinous crime they commit, is insane and obviously unconstitutional. So while he hasn't done it yet, the idea that Trump's even floating it isn't good. It's very bad. And even if you agree with Trump on immigration broadly, you voted for him, you support him, it's okay to think sometimes he goes too far, or sometimes he says something he shouldn't, or nobody is 100% correct 100% of the time. Okay, so even if you're a Trump supporter, I would hope you could agree with me that, like, hey, that is too far. But I was attacked on Twitter by some very loyal Trump Republicans for simply stating this, to me, obvious legal and moral point. The MAGA radio host Kurt Schlichter tweeted at me, "A tough, no-nonsense prison that has saved thousands of innocent Salvadorian lives is a dystopian torture hellhole. Brad Polumbo would rather innocent people be raped and murdered en masse than have killers in a jail he finds aesthetically displeasing. I prefer the criminals be locked up. It's a stark policy choice, and I appreciate him allowing voters to choose one or the other path." So I fear he may have missed the entire point of what I said, and tribalism and partisanship may have rotted his brain and eroded his reading comprehension skills. What I said was that American citizens who commit serious crimes should be put in American prisons in America. I did not say anyone who sexually assaults or murders people should be released and open to the streets. You hallucinated that. And it is so dishonest to see, after the description I just read of this prison, that my issue with is just that it's aesthetically displeasing. That's a tough, no nonsense. No, it's a torture chamber intended for terrorists in El Salvador. If you want to argue Americans should be sent to dystopian foreign prisons where they will be tortured, you may argue that. But don't gaslight me about what it is that we're talking about and what it is I did or didn't say. I worry, honestly, that with this immigration issue, Trump and Republicans are overplaying their hand. They're going too far in taking what should be and was a winning issue and turning it into something incredibly controversial and divisive and polarizing. But hey, what do I know? I'm just somebody who apparently wants violent criminals released and celebrated in society or something. Let me know what you think of in the comments, guys. Up next, we got to talk about Coachella, the big music festival that's happening right now, because this story perfectly sums up everything that's hilarious about the young generation. Billboard reports, as concert ticket prices soar, more than half of Coachella attendees are buying tickets through payment plans. Approximately 80,000 to 100,000 fans each weekend will have coughed up the $599 ticket price to see headliners Lady Gaga, Travis Scott, Green Day, and Post Malone, but ticket price is often just the cost of entry. Many of those fans will spend more than $1,000 per weekend on lodging and cough up hundreds of dollars more for food, drinks, and merchandise. It's a substantial spend for any of the 20-somethings in Coachella's target demographic. Festival organizers have increasingly helped finance their purchase through payment plan programs. Approximately 60% of general admission ticket buyers at this year's festival opted to use Coachella's payment plan system, which requires as little as $4.99 upfront for tickets to the annual concert. The Desert Festival isn't alone. Lollapalooza, Electric Daisy Carnival, and Rolling Loud all sell the majority of their tickets using some kind of payment plan system. So this is not great. I believe in freedom, and that includes the freedom to make bad decisions for yourself, which some of these young people are doing. But if you are well off, if you're comfortable, if you're making a high income, if you have cash to spare and you want to go spend a weekend in Coachella and enjoy the music festival and blow tons of money on super expensive housing, knock yourself out. It's probably not how I would spend my extra cash or my ideal vacation or trip, but great. Enjoy it. What you should probably not be doing, though, is going to Coachella if you need to take out a payment plan to pay $600. The math there is not mathing, babe. Like, somebody get Dave Ramsey on the phone, because the personal finance is not personally financing in this case. And there's like a $40 fee associated with this, so it's not even like a totally free, interest-free system. It's just not a decision you should be making if you're that tight on cash, right? To be prioritizing this or doing this. And if you want to make bad decisions, at the end of the day, like, it is your life. But the problem is that the same people, some of the same people using payment plans to go to Coachella will then demand that I pay their student loans via the government. Will demand that they need free healthcare at my expense. Now, obviously, like, just one Coachella ticket price or the payment fee or anything doesn't make up the gap there, but it's about the principle of the decisions and the personal responsibility, which increasingly in society is no longer in the room with us. Like, the era when people took accountability and responsibility for their own actions in their own lives is on the way out, tragically. I'm hoping to bring it back, one Delulu clap back at a time. But at the end of the day, we need to bring back a society where people are responsible for their own decisions and the consequences of them, where people actually have common sense and basic financial literacy. And if they want to play stupid games, we have to let them win stupid prizes. We can't come in and bail people out, or you can expect this generation to never really grow up and start making actual adult decisions. What do you guys think? Would you take a payment plan for Coachella? Let me know in the comments. Okay, up next, we've got this story featuring the police in the UK. And guys, This is dystopian. Take a listen to this footage of a police officer interviewing someone for a potential hate crime because of what he said.
You may have filmed some of this interaction with the mayor. No? Because if you do, that would be really handy for us. But apparently during some conversations between yourself, apparently you have alleged, we weren't here, so I don't know you said it, but you've alleged to say, speak English, or worse to that effect?
Speak clearly.
Speak clearly.
No,
okay.
The gentleman's partially deaf.
Yeah, he can speak clearly. Yeah.
So I couldn't even hear him.
No, and that's fine, and that's why we've just come to speak, because potentially someone could perceive that as a hate crime.
Did we just know this was going to happen?
No, people, if someone says to me, officer, I believe this, then we need to look at it, because someone's potentially reporting to me a police.
What in the woke did we just witness? The police officers rolling up on this man because somebody reported an alleged hate crime because of him asking them to speak English or speak clearly, is what he says he said. But even if he said speak English, that is not a hate crime. That is a request, and a reasonable one when you are in England. And if you really don't want to do it, you can say, no, I don't want to speak English, and walk away and not talk to this person. But you have not been hate crimed, and you are absolutely wild if you think you have been. Now, I understand that in this case, this officer is just doing his job and just following the rules of the law, following up on this report. And apparently, from the social media chatter, the guy here was deaf, so he was asking him to be clear, the person he was speaking with. He wasn't trying to be racist. But even if he was, that is not a crime. It's just speech. It's just words that maybe it hurt your fifis, but newsflash, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words cannot. We used to teach this to toddlers, but now apparently it is lost on entire societies of adult humans. Where is the thick skin? Where is the resilience? Where is the internal sense of confidence that someone else being slightly rude to you or saying something slightly upsetting doesn't derail you to the point where you call the police? That's the problem here. And also, guys, it's not just this one situation. It's not just one anecdote, one viral video. Let's say this video is missing context, or there's something wrong with it, or if actually nothing bad happened. This happens thousands of times in the United Kingdom because they have become so anti-free speech and so dystopian. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here's reporting from The Times. Police make 30 arrests a day for offensive online messages in the UK. Civil liberties groups say that the authorities are over-policing the internet and threatening free speech using vague laws. Thousands of people are being detained and questioned for sending messages that cause annoyance, inconvenience, or anxiety to others via the internet, telephone, or mail. Custody data obtained by The Times show that officers are making about 12,000 arrests a year under Section 127 of the Communications Act 2003 and Section 1 of the Malicious Communications Act 1988. The acts make it illegal to cause distress by sending grossly offensive messages or sharing content of an indecent, obscene, or menacing character on an electronic communications network. Officers from 37 police forces made 12,183 arrests in 2023, the equivalent of about 33 per day. This marks an almost 58% rise in arrests since before the pandemic. In 2019, forces logged 7,734 detentions. So this is dystopian. This is genuine censorship by the state in the UK, arresting and detaining and charging people because they hurt other people's fifis on the internet. And guys, the reason I bring this up is not because I'm particularly invested in the state of UK politics, though of course I support free speech for everyone in the whole world. However, it's because the UK and England are very culturally and politically similar to the United States. There are many differences, but there's one big difference. They don't have a First Amendment. They don't have a strong constitutional protection like we do that prevents this kind of thing from ever happening at scale, because laws of this sort would be struck down in the courts in America. But right now, we have pushes on the left and the right to chip away at the First Amendment in many different ways across many different fields, and all of them are a huge mistake, because each time you chip away at it, if you're successful, you take us a little bit closer to this kind of dystopian place where people are getting rounded up for their social media posts by the police. Let me know what you guys think, especially the Brits in my audience. I know there's quite a few of you. All right, everybody, that'll be it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet, or do consider hitting that like button before you go. Thanks again to Opus Clip for sponsoring today's video, and we'll talk again real soon.